Western North Carolina businesses need your financial support now more than ever in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. This month, Darby Communications, based in Asheville, North Carolina, is donating its ad space here on the Rock Fight to help other outdoor businesses in Western North Carolina get back on their feet. The outdoor industry is a major contributor to Western North Carolina's economy, and Darby Communications is asking people to donate to the Outdoor Business Alliance Hurricane Helene Relief Fund, which supports outdoor industry businesses in their recovery and supports their staff as they rebuild in the wake of the storm's devastation. Now is the time to help the outdoor community to help build back what we lost in Western North Carolina. Head to outdoorbusinessalliance.org and click Donate Today to get started.
Rock fight, rock fight, rock fight, rock fight, rock fight, rock fight.
Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and joining me today, he's the alpha bud of my Galinda. It's Justin Hausman.
There you go again with your your obscure references that no one under the age of 90 is going to get. What did you just say?
Now I'm turning the tables on you because that is a Wicked reference.
Oh,
which is all the rage right now, and it was part of my plan to talk about Wicked on the podcast.
my girls are too young, or at least one of them. Both of them, maybe.
There's two reasons why I wouldn't take them. There is one scene that you'd want to skip back. So you would care if I spoil it. Spoilers for Wicked if you don't want to know. Fast forward like 10 seconds. They do a thing where you see the monkeys that become the flying monkeys like getting their wings, and they're in pain and agony when it happens, and it's a little disturbing.
Okay.
The other reason I wouldn't take your kids to see Wicked, it is officially the longest movie that has ever been made in my entire. It was so. I think it's still playing.
What was the previous longest movie? Experientially,
oh, it's technically not.
I know what you mean, but it's a great point that you made. Like the runtime, it doesn't really matter. Some movies are longer than others.
Oh my god, my wife leaned over to me and she's like, "This is so long," because there's just these really dry sections in between, like really good sections. For me, it would probably be Killers of the Flower Moon.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
I probably never will, to be honest. Here's 3.5 hours of a movie where almost the entire time you're going to feel like shit.
Well, today, Justin and I are going to talk about some stories that come out of the outdoor industry and community. But before we get to that, we got to tell you about some things that we need you, our listeners, to do for us as we make this awesome free podcast for you to listen to. We need you to first follow and rate this show wherever you're listening. We're having a pretty good follow month, guys, and we need it to be even better. Please follow and rate the show on any podcast app, your favorite podcast app. Leave us that 5-star rating. And also, if you subscribe to Rock Fight's newsletter that now comes out on Tuesdays, it came out today as we record this. If you like the top-notch content you get here on the Rock Fight, you're going to love what we put in our newsletter. It's the stuff you won't get anywhere else. So head to rockfight.co and click join the mailing list. And now Justin is going to tell you about how to reach out to the show and the show that he hosts. He's got some things for you as well.
Are you still including nudes in the newsletter? Now, if it's on Tuesday, the nudes are still in it,
listener
right, Colin?
Nudes.
Hey, listener nudes. Yeah, not us. You send us your nudes, we put them on the newsletter. The newsletter. Yeah, Colin, I'm hosting a podcast these days. It's called Gear and Beer. You should know it because you're on it too. You're on it with me every time. You are on it every time. So listen to and follow and rate. Like we just talked about the Rock Fight, do all that stuff with Gear and Beer. It's an entirely listener-driven show. We can't do it without your input, your questions that you send in faithfully. Speaking of that, we're going to be debuting a new segment pretty soon called Gear Abbey. Now, if you're, really, gosh, what's the age cutoff on Dear Abby, do you think?
Like 92.
Anyway, Dear Abby, you know Dear Abby. If you're listening to this, you're old enough. We don't have any. I don't think we have the super young ones. A lot of Gen Z listeners. Anyway,
a lot of 15-year-olds listening to the Rock Fight.
So like Dear Abby was. Gear Abby is just sending your general questions about the outdoor world. Gear Abby's in the name, but it doesn't have to be about gear. Maybe it's about who should you bring with you on your next backpacking trip. Maybe it's about how do I poop in the outdoors without it being a problem. Whatever. It's an advice column for you outdoor goers. So please email us your questions so we can answer them. Not live, but on the Gear Abbey segment on Gear and Beer. So do that.
Gear Abbey is a person. It's not like us.
No, it's somebody else.
Abbey.
Sorry, it's somebody else.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe let's not. I don't really feel like revealing it right now. You'll hear about it. They have committed. They've signed the contract. Yep. But they are. Let's just leave that as a little bit of a mystery until it happens. So,
but we do need the questions.
We do need those questions.
Topics. So yeah, send them in
for the love of God. Also email just general feedback right there at myrockfight@gmail.com, and we will listen and maybe get back to you. I don't know. Depends. Also, you know what, Colin? I have an announcement to make.
Okay.
The nominations are now open for California. What do we call this? California Outdoors Hall of Fame.
Is this a real thing?
This is a real thing.
Oh.
So I'm just throwing it out there. The nominations are open if you want to nominate someone who's lived in California their whole life for the California Outdoors Hall of Fame. Your favorite California outdoors person. Whoever it might be, Justin Hausman, whoever it might be, your favorite Justin Hausman writer or your favorite, Justin Hausman podcast, whatever. Justin Hausman.
God,
Just
can't wait to nominate Steven Casimiro.
If somebody pops up into your head, that's yeah. Anyway.
All right, well, let's get into our lead story, which today comes from a press release that came out last week about French brand Millet that is planning. Did I say that correct, French guy?
I mean, that's but I don't speak French.
I thought you were part. I know you speak German, but you also speak a little French.
No. I mean, I lived in Paris for a while, but that doesn't really help. I mean, I don't know. That seems.
We're going with Millet. All right, so they're planning to enter the.
I don't know.
Well, we'll get to Millet because that's actually a problem for
I'm
them.
going to call it Millet.
Yeah. So they're planning to enter the U.S. marketplace during this season, fall, winter 24-25, as well as in spring, summer 25. Millet is a mountaineering-focused brand. They manufacture apparel, packs, and equipment, and maybe footwear as well. They're also one of the oldest brands around. They were founded in 1921. Apparently, the focus for entering the U.S. will be spent getting placement for the brand at specialty retailers. They're taking a wholesale approach. And specifically, they want to get placement in the Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, with some marketing support being given to growing the brand through PR efforts, consumer-focused events, and athletes' sponsorships. Now, I know a little bit about Millet from my time working at Polar Tech. I got to see some of their stuff when I would go to the trade shows in Europe. Make really good products. I think they have really interesting brand history, how long they've been around. But their offering's largely the same as kind of any other outdoor brand who serves people who climb mountains or go skiing or hike and trail run. So ultimately, this is only going to work for them if they're able to take existing market share from the brands that are, from the brands that dealers are already carrying. So I sent the story around to a handful of specialty retailers who pretty much all agreed that the brand is very cool, but that this probably won't work unless they work to inform the consumer who they are. But we just saw Jack Wolfskin depart the U.S. to go back to Germany, and the only two brands that a couple people mentioned that have seemed to get traction here has been Rab and Fjällräven in a meaningful way. Nerona's been at it for years. You see these other brands that come in and they have to kind of nibble at the giant market share rock, right? How do we get in? So, the one thing I thought that was interesting that a retailer told me that selfishly they would carry way more European brands. They really like brands like Millet, but just the consumer, the U.S. consumer doesn't want to support those brands. They know the brands they like, and it's kind of a bridge too far to kind of sell them on these other ones at only the retail level. So really kind of paints this picture that the only way this truly works is if Millet does more than PR and athlete sponsorships. They need to advertise. They need to get more. They need to inform the U.S. outdoor consumer who they are. Now, the other thing I wanted to get your point of view on this, Justin, because you spend time pitching products as part of a PR team, and that's clearly a path these guys are taking. So, I mean, how challenging is that? I've never done that, right? So, I mean, when you send emails out, when you're trying to get, someone to pay attention to a brand you're pitching or a product, or even like a news story that you're pitching, I mean, how many times do you get meaningful coverage of what it is that you're pitching?
Well, I think it's more, that's probably more relevant to flip that around and just be as a journalist receiving pitches, in the sense that like it's kind of the same problem, right? Which is that I mean, if I'm like I'm okay, so if I'm getting I'm sure I will fairly soon once they actually start this process, right? Like I'll get a pitch from Backbone, right? And I'll look at it.
Is it Backbone? Backbone has these guys?
I have no idea. I'm just whatever. I'll just grab them out of the and like, okay, so Millet or whatever. I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna go, well, it's a French brand. I'm gonna look at their picture like I just did. I'm at their website, which I would honestly, without paying much attention, think it was the Helene Hansen website, because the way that their M is shaped looks like an H.
That's actually really fair.
And the style is actually pretty similar to Helene Hansen.
Yeah, sure.
So it's like I would be like, oh, okay, it's a French brand. Like I don't see us like I don't. Sure, I'll try it. That would be my thought, right? I'll try it. Sure, send me a jacket, and like if it blows me away, I'll talk. I guess it being new is enough of a differentiator to like maybe get. I'm sure there'll be a sort of gear junkie, right? Like, hey, there's a new French brand. If you need a new jacket, I don't know, check it out. I guess.
Yep.
So that as like trying to get a journalist to cover it. I mean, good Lord God. I mean, that really all you have to sell it. The only way you can sell it is like this is a new brand. I mean, like the brands tend to think that people give a shit about their history. I truthfully don't think. Do you? I don't think anybody cares.
No,
I don't think anybody cares.
I think I think you're probably in the same boat. Like I'm kind of a nerd for this stuff. I'm interested.
Oh, totally. But like,
Me
I'm not
as
going to
an
make a
individual?
purchasing decision based
No
on that. Like,
way.
I don't give a
No
rat's ass.
way.
You could have started last week or 1,000 years ago. I don't care. Like,
Right.
is it a nice
Right.
looking jacket? Does it feel good? That's all I ultimately care
That's
about.
what matters.
And so to
Yep.
me, like my thing with when I was, well, I guess we still do with gear and beer, but like when I was getting paid to like write articles about gear all the time, like my main thing was like, this has to be interesting for one. There
Yep.
could be a million reasons, but like a nice piece of outdoor equipment is not interesting in and of itself. Like it needs to either do something that no one's ever heard of. It needs to do it so much better than anything else you've ever seen in your life that you like actually feel like telling other people about it. Or it needs to be getting a bunch of buzz and you want to like weigh in. That's really the only reason I would even think about covering something like this. Now, your examples of Fjallraven and Wolfskin are super interesting, because Jack Wolfskin at least had one thing going for it, which is a fucking weird name, right? Like anytime I
That is a
saw
good name.
a Jack Wolfskin pitch, I was like, what is this? Like, this is just a weird name. Like, I'm interested
still
in
didn't
this
work.
because it's just in and of itself, it's a strange name. I don't know who Jack Wolfskin is.
Yeah.
I never bothered to look into it, but it's like, whatever. Their stuff is awesome. Like my favorite rain jacket is Jack Wolfskin, and it's absolutely incredible. I wear it way more than I wear any of the other rain jackets I have from the big US brands. Rob has, and I'm wearing a Rob jacket right now. Rab, they have like an elegant design thing going for them. That's the only reason I think they even really get much market share, right? Like the logo is understated. The way the jackets look, they look a little bit more elevated, I guess, right? And even like the mountain bike stuff that we've tried out, it's good, it's fine.
Sure.
But to me, and like the sleeping bags and stuff are like this too. Like they just look nice. It just looks like they present themselves as an upscale brand for people who are serious about doing this. And so, okay, that's kind of enough. But
right.
I would think that's not an easy thing to pull off, right?
Well, it's probably all these brands. I mean, it goes back to you and I have talked about it a bunch about it. Like the stuff all works. Everybody's making stuff that's
works.
good. It's going to fit. And so, what's your differentiation point? And it's truly like, okay, well, you got to make people want your brand. Because, the Millet stuff's going to be like as good as the Nerona or Rab stuff. I mean, Nerona's another one. I've had some Nerona stuff that is just absolutely killer, but you don't see it when you go into shops.
No,
and I think a little bit here and there. And that's the thing. Like, whoever the agency they hired for this region, I'm sure they'll get a place. Obviously, it's a Northwest agency, so they're going to want to get it in REI. All makes sense. But it's, again, why, when you're going in, why is a buyer going to bring this brand in over something they're already carrying that is tried and true? Yeah. And when a consumer doesn't really know about it, and if your kind of point to build the brand awareness is through athlete sponsorship, press releases, and just...
And that's what everybody else is doing too.
Yeah.
And like athlete stuff has never moved the needle for me as a journalist.
Never.
I just don't care. It's like whatever. I couldn't tell you what, I'm sure Alex Holland was still sponsored by like Black Diamond. I couldn't tell you what he wears or why. Fjallraven though is interesting. Now they have a few things going for them, which is they're unique, right? Like their stuff is very unique. Like it's natural fibers. It's
right.
Like I got my first Fjallraven stuff was like a wax canvas jacket. And I don't think the pants are wax canvas, but some really interesting pants and like just totally unique.
Yeah, you don't think of them as like a top of the mountain kind of brand, like a mountaineering brand, right?
And like for all I know, you could wear the stuff there. I don't know.
They might have all that stuff, right?
But like that's in and of itself already more interesting than like another down jacket would be.
Yeah, right.
Also, Fjallraven, I actually wrote a feature on the woman who she runs Westerland now, which is like a mountain sort of outdoor, like a very high end outdoorsy curation brand in New York. And but she's the reason that you and I know what Fjallraven is. Like she was the first like importer or whatever you call it, I forget, licensee, whatever, something like that of Fjallraven in the States. And they'd tried like to get in the States before and couldn't make inroads. And probably the same as any other of these European brands that have really like worked hard and not had the success they wanted until Madonna it was either her or her daughter or something was spotted wearing one of those little tiny Kronken backpacks that everybody know, that like if you don't know the outdoors, Fjallraven from those tiny backpacks. Like she was wearing one in an airport and like people were like, what is that little backpack? It's so cute. And boom. That's what it took.
All right.
And so all
lose the outdoor athletes and go sponsor
sell a
Madonna.
cute little basket little backpack that Madonna will wear. I mean, that's what did it. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like every store wanted those little backpacks. And it was like once that got in, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you make other cool shit, and they're just built and built and built and built and built and built and built. So, but that's a differentiator, you know. And so,
Right.
I don't know what Millet is going to have. I mean, look at their site. I'm sure it's all great, but like, what? Why though? Also, why? Like, what
Why?
do you like? Are you not selling enough in France? Like, I don't know.
Well, I see it. I mean, it's just sitting there like God. If you can get because if it works and they can get steal a piece of share, all of a sudden, whoa, man, revenue goes way up. I totally get it. And to a point, I'm supportive of it. I think it's great. I thought it was interesting that retailers saying that they would carry way more European brands. They really like the brands and the products they make, but it's just it doesn't sell as well as the other stuff. And and you go back to your point of even the kind of the original thing you said about when you get pitched as a journalist. Even if you take the pitch, even if you like it and you write for it, I mean, what is the reach of that article to the general public?
Yeah.
The amount you would need people to read it to really make a meaningful difference in getting retailers to carry your stuff. So I'm not saying that you should go get a Super Bowl ad, but I do think like advertising and brand awareness, how do you raise consumer awareness? And I have some painful years and some deep pockets to make it happen, but that's probably the path.
Have the Jaguar marketing team do your stuff. Apparently, they know how to get everybody talking about them. I mean,
that is
so I don't know. Good luck to you, Millet. I'm sure this stuff is cut really well. It probably looks way better than like most. American
they make great
crap.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, good luck.
They probably should spend, this is what I was saying at the beginning, they probably should spend a little bit on some SEO strategies right now, because I just searched Millet on Google.
Yeah, I have this,
You have the same thing?
Yep.
The first thing that comes back is millet.
Yep.
And it's like with the seed or grain or whatever millet is.
There's probably some really fun market stuff you could lean into. That's the thing. It's like these days you have more opportunities than ever because it seems like all bets are off, right? Like you can go can go what it sounds like they're going to do the very like, I wouldn't even say it's dependable because it only works if you're already a known brand, but like
traditional. It's called traditional.
Yeah, right. But like sort of just general, but like that's not gonna move the needle for me. And so as a consumer or as a person who potentially cover your product. But if you hit me with some weird ass liquid death marketing, okay. I'm on board. Or if your entire tagline is like, no, it's not made with millet or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Like, I would play around with it a little bit, or have a little bag of millet in every pocket. I don't know, like something like that. And it's like, then great, but.
So there's your two paths, either expensive, Google, Instagram videos or Madonna.
I will say that Millet, if you're listening, I'm happy to like take on your marketing strategy for like $100,000 a month,
Oh, that's it? Wow, you're
fair.
It's
either going to work or it's not, right? You may as well try it.
Hey, if anybody at Millet, especially over in France, wants to join us on the show to talk about it, we'd love to have you on. I really, genuinely, it'd be interesting to kind of hear like what the strategy is, knowing that I'm sure they're aware that it has been challenging for other brands to get traction in the States. So, like, what are you going to do? We'd love to learn more about that.
Every Millet jacket comes with a Ford F-150. That might sell. That might move the needle.
Okay, I'm in.
I mean. This is more an indictment on Americans than it is on your brand or your product or any marketing strategy you may employ. It's just that we're bombarded with shit here.
Like complimentary of the brand. Like that's what I'm saying. The retailers are like, yeah, we love the European stuff. It's just really tough to sell it because people don't know what it is. And they're like, I'll take Colombia, thank you. So anyway, all right. Well, let's take a quick stop at Hausman's house.
Oh,
that's
wonderful!
You.
Yeah,
and see what our favorite outdoor journalist Justin Hausman is up to. It's a new segment, Hausman's house.
I love Hausman's house. House of Hausman.
So you had an article last week on nationalparkstraveler.com about a proposed plan to mitigate erosion.
.org.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Non-profit.
.org. I my bad.
Thank you.
Anyway, but there's a plan to mitigate erosion that's impacting Effigy Mounds National Monument. Now, I got to admit, I didn't even know what Effigy Mounds National Monument was before reading your article. But what's going on in Iowa? Tell us about what's happening over there.
All right. Well, first of all, do you even know that there were mounds, like mound builders in America? Did you know about this?
No, nothing. All of it was news to me.
Whoa. Really?
Yeah. Really?
Cahokia? You know what that is? Ever heard of that before
Nope.
until just right now?
Nope.
No way. Okay. Well, basically there's a whole culture of people called mound builders that were, obviously prehistoric in North America. And that doesn't necessarily tie them all together, right? Like they're not, other than the fact that like these groups of people all over North America all like to make earthen mounds. Okay.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean, again, mound builders is a term that is very, very broad, but they weren't all like interconnected or whatever. They obviously, a lot of these people wouldn't have known the other ones existed, but it was a pretty common thing throughout North America to make big giant mounds for various reasons. So Cahokia is by far the most famous, and it's outside of St. Louis, although it's in Illinois technically. But it was basically like a city. And people think now there could have been like 10,000, maybe even more people that lived there at one point. And they built these huge like blocks of like dirt, and then on top of those they erected like wooden structures. So the wooden structures are gone, but the mounds are still there. And so this would have like rivaled stuff that you would have seen in Mesoamerica, except they were making theirs out of like stone and shit, right? Like this was just dirt with like wood on top. Now that's not what Effigy Mounds is, but that's just to give you an example of the kind of thing that was going on in North America. So when like the first Europeans like start like penetrating into the interior, there's a lot of stories about this. Where like, holy shit, like there must have been some kind of like super race that was here before, because no way the Native Americans could possibly have built this. Like this is a pretty common refrain that you'll read about. But anyway, Effigy Mounds are in what's called the driftless area, which is a like northern Midwest. Like Iowa, I think like part of Wisconsin is considered, like southern Wisconsin is there. That zone, and it's not like the rest. Well, I'm not a Midwest expert, but it's not what you think. It's not like rolling plains and stuff like that. This is the upper Mississippi River Valley, and there's all these like really big intricate bluffs, and like this is really heavily forested, and the geography is different, the topography is different. Like it's just a different area than a lot of what you'll find in the rest of the Midwest, and it's beautiful. And basically, there was a culture there that built mounds. These, however, don't appear to have been structural. They were just like ceremonial or burial. But there's a lot of them, and like aerial views, they look like different plants and animals and things that were sacred to them. It's pretty freaking sweet. These again, they're just dirt. You know, and they just like stacked them like 10 feet high or so, and they make big intricate patterns all along the floodplain of the Mississippi. And if you see photos of the area, you'll know pretty quick. Like that's why I'd live there. Like it looks gorgeous.
Right,
it's obviously like, you know, very lush, and there would have been plenty of food and all this sort of stuff. So these people lived there for a really long time. They built these things for thousands of years. Like I think the oldest known one is like 3,000 years old, and then like all the way up until like 500 years ago is when they think the last ones were built. But anyway, so part of that is now part of Effigy Mounds Monument, National Monument, and but as like everything else, we've really fucked up the way the Missouri flows, and so over the years, as
the Missouri or the Mississippi?
I'm sorry, the Mississippi. Like over the years, engineers have built like locks and dam systems to like improve shipping, all that sort of stuff, which changes the flow of the river, and it's added a lot of water to some of the little byways that like flow, like sloughs and stuff that kind of flow into the river. And that's what's happening at Effigy Mounds. So it's connected to the Mississippi from with the Johnson Slough, which it looks like a bay. It's beautiful, and there's just a lot more water in that than there used to be because of the lock and dam systems. Now, another unfortunate part of climate change is that the storms are gnarlier, rain's a lot heavier, and a lot more of it all at once. And so there's a lot. Oddly enough, like it's funny because we think of like climate change, you think of like drought and all those sorts of things, but the Mississippi is getting a lot more water flow than it used to because of climate change. And so as that's happening, it's creating massive erosion channels that in places where they weren't before. And now one of them is eating heavily into the Effigy Mounds monument. And it's like eroding all these mounds that are like thousands of years old. And so they've tried all this, like, you know, little things to fix it. But finally, oddly enough, the Army Corps of Engineers were like, you know what, we have a bunch of money that we like just that we can use for like various projects, some of which involves like mitigating cultural resource damage. Do you guys want us to use it? And Effigy Mounds is like, yes. And so they're building this like massive, like $12 million project, this like huge berm to protect it from erosion, to protect the mounds from erosion. And it, you know, will it work? I don't know. The river does what the river does. What's interesting though is there's a lot of they to do anything like this, you have to involve like tribes, right? Like what do you guys say?
Yeah, it's right.
And there's a little bit of a back and forth from people that are like, you know what, it's the river's going to do what the river's going to do. Like that's not.
That's kind of my question.
Yeah.
Like, what are we just delaying the inevitable? We're talking about dirt mounds.
For sure. I mean, like, I don't think there's any. I don't think at any point the mankind has defeated water, right? For any of this sort of stuff. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
So yeah, but I think it's actually really interesting that there's a fairly vocal group of like tribal nations that are like, yeah, this area is really sacred to us, but at the same time, like, we aren't like as obsessed with you guys as the rest of the West is with like perpetuity and like permanence of things, right? Like,
And
it's a
the
fucking
guilt for
river.
putting this up,
Well,
putting everybody in this
that,
position.
and
yeah.
that. So, but ultimately they've consulted with a ton of tribes, and the tribes are like, yeah, let's do it. That's fine. So there'll be a bunch of like tribal monitors there, which is pretty standard now. But just making sure that like they're not messing anything up. That national monument got in trouble a few years back from a superintendent that was letting people build shit through the mounds like without the proper permits and stuff like that. So there's already kind of a history of stuff being a little bit weird there. But it's a fascinating place, and like I've never been there, I'd like to go.
Yeah.
I have friends that do a lot of fly fishing in Iowa, which like blew my mind when they told me about it. But like, it's like we don't think about that part of the country as being interesting in terms of an outdoor draw, but it looks spectacularly beautiful and very unique. So I would love to get up there at some point.
Yeah, that's just what I was about to say. I think like I not knowing about it, knowing that there is a level of impermanence here, right? It's like even if they help out themselves by creating this with what they're going to build, at some point it's going to go away.
Yeah,
because it's dirt mounds.
Yeah.
So I feel a little urgency to go check out Effigy Mounds because before it goes away, because everything it's like but before I'm thinking Zion's not going anywhere before I die. Right?
For sure.
It's kind of like
it's kind of gnarly that like I hadn't heard of Cahokia until I went there. So I was an archaeologist. I don't think I was at the time. I wasn't yet. But like I wouldn't have learned it. I didn't even learn about it then, like in my anthropology classes, I don't think. But
so much stuff, man.
It's pretty weird that we don't that's not. And we learned about Native Americans, but like a giant city in the Midwest that like rivaled Mesoamerican cities, and there's evidence to suggest they were on trade routes with like the Maya, and we don't learn about this.
It's crazy.
So, like,
you think they charge 25% in tariffs?
Yeah,
to the Maya?
That's what happened to Cahokia. They charged too much in tariffs. They couldn't afford to get their Mayan. They couldn't afford to get their chia or whatever from the Mayans, and civilization broke down. It was dog eat dog.
It's a warning right there.
Yeah, they tried to
cautionary
keep Cahokia
tale.
great again, and it didn't work. Rock fighters.
Yes,
it's November, which is bad news if you're a turkey. Are you a turkey, Colin?
I'm not.
Then it's good news for you.
I know.
And if you're a retail buyer, it may be the best month of the year because you're laying your plans to crush it on your shop floor in 2025. And boy, do I have a hot tip for you. It's Royal Robins. That's right. That's
a pretty hot tip.
Robins. If you're like, really? Yeah, really. I might be.
I'm like, really?
Am I wearing
Are you wearing it?
Oh, let me see. No, which is unusual. I typically am these days. Royal Robins is gaining traction in a really interesting way. They're one of the true OGs of outdoor brands. They're part of that early group of California climbers. Well, Royal Robins was part of that. The man himself was part of that early group of California climbers who kicked off the modern era of the outdoor industry. Right alongside Tompkins and Chouinard of North Face and Patagonia, a couple little brands you've probably heard of.
You probably know about those guys.
So if anyone can step up, they can. I spoke with Royals brand president Eric Burbank, and they're making.
You did?
Well. Yeah,
I did too. When did you talk to Eric? Was that recently?
Dude, I was right behind you the whole time. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're like a ninja.
No, I was just manipulating your mouth like I always do. Just you're my little puppet. They're making
That's
moves.
true. That's the unknown thing about this podcast is there's really only one person here.
Yeah,
Justin's really good at voices.
Turns out being a ventriloquist is way easier on a podcast. So they're focused on natural fibers, tight merchandising, and a range that knows what it stands for. All stuff that Royal himself would be down with too. We're pretty sure. Eric's actually going to be on the Rock Fight next month, so we can dig more into Royal's comeback story. And tell you what, Colin's been wearing, we've both been wearing their new wool hoodies. It feels pretty good. My wife loves it on me.
Yeah, you sent me a text. You're like, this thing is awesome. And that is not made up for the ad,
nope,
folks.
That's really true. Yeah, it's like, this thing is
totally
sick.
legit.
Yeah. You kind of feel like a modern day Obi-Wan Kenobi in mine. Like that nice.
I can see that.
Like
it's
unbranded,
that,
like rugged wool. it's great.
Also, the Amplight hoodie. I want to shout out the Amplight hoodie. That thing is sick. Yeah. That is a great sun hoodie.
Sun shirts forever. So this November, don't be a turkey, please. Check out Royal Robins. Next November, you'll be thanking yourself. We promise.
All right, next story. So according to multiple media outlets, most notably to listeners of the Rock Fight, that would be paddlingmag.com, a Wisconsin kayaker, Justin, you actually sent me this, thought to have gone missing and potentially died in August, has apparently faked his own death in order to flee his family and start a new life somewhere in Europe. Ryan Borgward, I assume I'm pronouncing that correctly, Borgward? I don't know if the T is silent or not. Borgward left a trail of clues to lead authorities to believe that he had gone missing and presumably had died while out on Wisconsin's Green Lake. Borgward has a family, including 3 children, and then he was then discovered to have used his passport to cross into Canada and make his way somewhere in Europe. There were clues that were discovered after his disappearance, including a Google search results about moving funds to a foreign bank, a recently purchased $370,000 life insurance policy, and a history of messages with a woman in Uzbekistan. Officials made contact with Borgward on November 11th, confirming that he was not dead, and also revealed the details of his plan. Justin, you wanna walk us through the details of what his plan was that he told the authorities once they made contact with him?
So some of this is, so I did send this to you, Colin. Some of this is a little bit new to me. I didn't so he stashed his electric bike at the boat launch on the lake. That's interesting.
Yep.
Because I thought I had read that they found his truck with a trailer in it at the lake.
They did, well, that too. That was there as well. His truck
he
was
brought
there
his
as well.
electric bike too.
Yeah, but hold on, you'll see why
Okay.
in a second.
So he paddles out into the lake with the children's inflatable boat.
Right.
Oh, that's how he did it. Got it. Okay, because I know he overturned the kayak in the lake.
Yep.
Threw his phone in the lake. The last thing he did was he texted his wife like, "Oh, I'm going to turn around and paddle back home, and I'll be home for dinner or whatever." Then
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Diabolical, man.
from the lake. So he chucks his phone in the lake, paddles back to shore, and the kid's bike rides the e-bike to Wisconsin, to Madison, Wisconsin.
80 miles.
Fucking hell! So he
I
obviously
wonder if
had
this
a
guy's
battery.
a cyclist or he's just dying
Well,
along the way.
there is an e-bike on Earth that will make it 80 miles without a battery change. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Took a bus to Detroit into Canada.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so I do know that was when. So from what I understand, basically they he's reported missing by his wife, and then the sheriff department, presumably Park Service people, whatever state parks are nearby, whatever it was, they started going out and like combing the lake, right? Like they had like
Yeah.
Like
it was like a 2+ week search
it was
back
a
in
month.
August.
It was a month.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, you're right. Yeah. It was long.
And like they had like a cadaver dog or multiple, and like they kept doing like sonar scans of the lake, and there was like no bodies, there was nothing. And finally, which is pretty cool that they work well enough to where finally the sheriff was like, he's
Something's
not
going
here.
on here.
Like there's no body
Yeah.
here.
There was some expert that's like, I'm really good at finding people. I don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was like a weird thing.
And that led them to I think they must have just done some sort of general like check on his name, and that's what spit out that his passport had been like scanned in Canada like the day after
Yeah.
he was reported missing. And so then they raid they get like a warrant and go to his house and like find his computer, and he like tried to purge it. He like wiped his hard drive, did a bunch of
Yeah,
stuff
he
with his
tried.
computer, and
So
but they
here's
still
the tip for you folks.
Yeah.
Everything's saved.
you don't know what you're doing. Like you don't know enough. You can't just go on incognito and everything's fine.
I'm picturing, like, I know this is a kind of a serious story, but it's really hard
I
not
know.
to make light of it in some regard when it's like, just you're like, okay, how do I move my funds to Europe? So
I
this
mean,
bank in Europe, like, Jesus
it's not
Christ, dude.
it's not a funny story at all. It's really sad, but
is.
it's also kind of interesting, or it's definitely interesting.
It's
It's
hard
kind
not
of
to
funny.
laugh at
Fuck,
some
I don't know.
aspects of
Like
it.
I've been using it definitely as a butt of jokes about like not wanting to have to deal with stuff, and a lot of text threads I have like, oh, it's a kid's birthday party, then like send the link to that story around like, well, here's a way out.
I'm trying to get you on the podcast. Like, why are you in Uzbekistan? What's going on?
Yeah, being in Uzbekistan is going to be code for not wanting to do something for a really long time. But as far as I also am aware, so the authorities were able to basically just put out like a general statement, like, "Hey, dude, we know
Yeah.
you. It's not that we're not judging you; we're judging you, but also like it's not about that. Like you have a family that wants to know that you're okay. Like we understand, like shit happens. We don't know the like we don't really know what's going on in your relationship. We don't care, frankly, but you do have kids." And
Yeah.
so he sent a video like pretty quickly after that went out, just saying, "Look, I'm alive. I'm in Europe. I'm not going to tell you where." And I don't believe he's planning on coming back.
No, it's gone cold apparently. Not cold, but like there's been no update beyond that. That was kind of like the last thing they heard. And yeah, I thought the same thing. Like there was a very Midwestern-y looking sheriff or police officer in charge of the investigation with the mustache and everything. He was like, "Hey man, we get it. It's hard. Things get hard.
Yeah.
But please, you have family depending on you, all that kind of stuff." So yeah.
He took out a life insurance policy, which here's the thing, right? Like if you take out a life insurance policy and you find out that you're not dead, like, well, one, that's fraud. Well,
Yep.
Trying to fake your own death. I was surprised to learn that faking your own death is not a crime in and of itself. But
Should we try it?
Seems like so much work. And like that part. Here's what I'd like to interview this guy because I want to know.
I would love that.
I have to know what it felt like to send that text message, throw the phone in the lake. I have to know. I feel like that part
must have been months of planning at that point, right?
Yeah,
Like now, no going back now,
is he
right?
excited? Is he terrified? Is he
Yeah. Is he
guilty
relieved?
already? Like, yeah, like what's going through your mind? And that bike ride. I need to be on that bike ride. I need to know. Like that must have
That's
been
honestly the craziest thing. Not crazy, but it's just like the most interesting thing about this. Yeah, that 80 mile. At no point during that you're riding your bike. I mean, maybe he's a huge cyclist and it's not a big deal, but I don't get the impression that he
No.
was. And it's just sort of like on your e-bike, 80 miles to
And
Matt.
you're
That's
just
that
like-
core part of your plan.
anything that you thought was comfortable is gone, right? Like nobody
Yep.
like you are dying. You're dead. Like you can't call a
Yeah.
friend or whatever. I mean, like that's
Yeah.
fuck. That must have been the most like now. everything his family's going through is a million times worse and he's an asshole. But like, that must have been the most lonely feeling on the fucking planet at that point.
But how do you, at that point, that you have that long? I mean, so an 80-mile bike ride, that's a minimum of 2 hours, even if you're going fast. But 3 hours, sorry, like if you're going fast, right? Even if you're on like a road bike and you're a good cyclist.
Dude, that's on all day. He rode all day.
There's no one, not one moment where you're thinking of your kids?
Yeah.
Not one moment where you're just like, what am I doing?
That's true.
What am I doing?
Then it wasn't really too late. Like, it wasn't too late until, I wonder when, interesting. When is the too late moment?
Probably when you take out the insurance policy, because at some point I guess, or you just say, hey, I have this insurance policy now, because he said it was for his family, apparently. He took it out for his family.
Well, of course. Yeah, the idea was that he would die and they would get that $370,000, which is, by the way, not that much. Like, insurance policies are not that expensive. Like, I paid not a ton for
couldn't go for the $1 million one,
right?
buddy,
Like, especially if you know, like, who, like, you doing it for a fucking reason. Well, this is a guy who's ditching
his family. I guess he didn't care that much.
It's that, all of that's insane. I just need to know how lonely that must have felt. Hopefully,
this is an example of outdoor adventure being used for evil. Obviously, we wouldn't normally be talking about a story like this, except for the outdoor adventure components of it. But if you were going to try and disappear, how would you do it?
Probably very similar to that. I mean, I have two things going for me. I'm a surfer and surfer's the easiest.
Yeah, I'm in Mexico and I never came back.
And you just toss a board into the ocean by like, Lord knows what happened. Like, you're not gonna comb the fucking bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, there's problems in Mexico. We got sharks down here. Like, just whatever. We don't know what happened to them.
That happens all the goddamn time. So it's like I guess that's it. I mean, there's no reason to even think about another one.
If there's one thing that unites every member of the outdoor and active community, it's that no matter what your favorite outdoor activity is, we all burn calories and we all need fuel. And that's where Fuel Goods comes in. Fuel Goods is the ultimate curator of nutrition for active people everywhere, because no one knows more about how you should fuel your adventures or how to get that fuel into your hands than they do. And right now is prime time for fueling. Over the next month, we have turkey trots, Santa runs, frosty 5Ks, along with the temptation to refuel using all of the desserts and holiday staples that will no doubt be in your home for the remainder of the year. Everyone, stop the madness. Fuel Goods has done the hard work of assembling a delicious and effective assortment of products to help you fuel for your next event or adventure. And if you're overwhelmed, you can order up one of their pre-assorted boxes like the famous Rider Box or the one that started it all, the Runner Box. And when you're done shopping for yourself, order a Fuel Goods monthly subscription as the perfect holiday gift for that calorie-deprived adventurer in your life. Look, I'm hungry. Aren't you hungry? Head to fuelgoods.com and start shopping today. So, all right, it's time for the parting shot. You go first this time. I feel like I've gone first a bunch.
So, Colin, I don't know exactly when this happened, although I'm looking at a video right now, and it says 13 days ago, so I'm guessing it was 2 weeks ago. Couple, 3 or 4 dudes up in Tahoe-ish, I want to say. Is that right? Do you know? Doesn't really matter.
It's in California.
Oh, it's in California.
Yeah.
It's in L.A. So maybe it was like Lake Hunting, like
that makes this worse. By the Tahoe would have been better. But
yeah, maybe it's like Lake Arrowhead zone, somewhere up in the mountains. Yeah. They went ahead and committed some light insurance fraud in the funniest way possible by dressing up in a fucking bear costume and like crawling into these like 3 like pretty nice cars and like that they owned and just going to town, but in the lamest way in them. They had these like claws that I don't know what they're for, and they almost look like ice things you would grab with ice. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, but something from your kitchen. Maybe
they're
I don't
real.
know what
Like
it
it's not like a toy. And like they like donned a bear suit and like climbed into their car with view of the security cameras, but not like super great view. Very well thought out there. And then just like tried to scratch the shit out of their car with these like claws to like recoup some insurance benefit. Hilarious. I hate insurance, so I'm all for insurance fraud. Go ahead. Like insurance is a scam. I hate everything about it. So like I don't feel go ahead. Just do a better job. Like if you're gonna get this involved, like for the love of God, like they don't even look like they're trying to look like a bear, and like they're pretty weak scratches. Like have you ever seen a bear actually attack a car? I mean, they take the seats out. Like there's stuffing of the seats. These are like little poked holes and like tiny little scratches. My toddler makes in my RAV4. She does a better job. Just do a better job.
My 32-pound Australian Shepherd could probably does more damage to the interior of my car.
Yeah, we're talking about a goddamn bear here, dudes. And so they also didn't throw it away. Like the sheriff came or like, are you committing insurance fraud in there? And they're like, no. And they just found a bear suit and the claws in the house. So they couldn't even throw that in the water somewhere. Anyway, just do a better job.
That's a good one. Watch the video. I'll link the video in the show notes. It's worth the 3 minutes of your time to see, because once you
have to know what's happening.
You'd raise your eyebrow if you saw this. You'd be like, "Is that actually a bear?"
Like the car's not even moving.
Realize,
it's like this bear weighs 150 pounds. That's weird.
Yeah, and then the door just opens on one of them. It's not like he's climbing through a window or something like that. It is so funny.
Yeah. These guys were so high when they came up with this idea.
All right, my parting shot. So this came out just before we started recording today. It was in the Daily. The Dick's Sporting Goods is going to be expanding its concept shop, House of Sports, to upwards of 100 locations by 2027. Now, I've already taken a victory lap on my prediction that Dick's would leave public lands in the dust in favor of House of Sport, but I'm happy to take another one. So firstly, the concept of House of Sport matches Dick's better than a full-on outdoor store like Public Lands. And part of the story was the inclusion of what Dick's is calling their Field House, which is their name for a smaller footprint of House of Sport. Now, noted by the Daily was that the representatives for Dick's who spoke on the topic did not mention anything about Public Lands, and combined that with REI's recent announcement that they are increasing their open-to-buy, as you heard Owen Comerford talk about on Monday's episode of The Rock Fight. And my guess is that any remaining public lands will also either convert to Field House or simply be shuttered. And just lastly on this, I've been in contact with Dick's PR team about getting Public Lands president Todd Spoleto on the show. Hopefully that happens either by the end of the year or perhaps early January, so I'm staying on them. Hopefully we can hear from Todd. But it's these interesting moves by Dick's. If Fieldhouse and House of Sport find traction and REI is on the up and up, I think it's a sign that we're coming into maybe a period of optimism for the industry. So, my parting shot, I guess, is that not all parting shots are bad. Go outdoor industry.
Big box outdoor industry, though.
Well, but you need that leads to a healthy. I'm just saying I'm going to shop there. Okay. I want to go right. So, all right, man. Anything else for you? You good? You want to wrap it up?
Yeah. Let's wrap it. Let's wrap her up. It's almost Thanksgiving. We got stuff to do.
Well, the Rock Fight's a production of Rock Fight LLC. For my guy, Justin Hausman, I'm Colin Truth. Thank you for listening. And he's here. He's back to take us out. Krista Makes. He's going to sing the Rock Fight fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.
Rock fight.